Never got far beyond the preparation, the plan, the first act, the first stanza. There are people like that who begin everything and never finish anything. I am such a one. But what am I saying? To the business in hand. I lie in my window, and the miserable little town, which fills me with despondency, really seems infinitely full of poetry. How wonderful the outlook upon the blue wall of high mountains interwoven with golden sunlight! Mountain torrents weave through them like ribbons of silver. How clear and blue the heavens into which snow-capped crags project! How green and fresh the forested slopes, the meadows on which small herds graze, down to the yellow billows of grain, where reapers stand and bend over and rise up again. The house in which I live stands in a sort of park, or forest, or wilderness, whatever one wants to call it, and is very solitary. Its sole inhabitants are myself, a widow from Lemberg, and Madame Tartakovska, who runs the house, a little old woman who grows older and smaller each day. There are also a dog that limps on one leg, and a young cat that continuously plays with a ball of yarn. This ball of yarn, I believe, belongs to the widow. She is said to be really beautiful, this widow, still very young, 24 at the most, and very rich. She dwells in the first story, and I on the ground floor. And she always keeps the green blinds drawn, and has a balcony entirely overgrown with green climbing plants. I, for my part, down below, have a comfortable, intimate arbor of honeysuckle, in which I read and write and paint and sing like a bird among the twigs. I can look up on the balcony. Sometimes I actually do so, and then from time to time a white gown gleams between the dense green network. Really, the beautiful woman up there doesn't interest me very much, for I am in love with someone else, and terribly unhappy at that, far more unhappy than the Knight of Toggenburg or the Chevalier in Manon Lescaut, because the object of my adoration is of stone. In the garden, in the tiny wilderness, there is a graceful little meadow on which a couple of deer graze peacefully. On this meadow is a stone statue of Venus, the original of which I believe is in Florence. This Venus is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in all my life. That, however, does not signify much, for I have seen few beautiful women, or rather, few women at all. In love, too, I am a dilettante who never got beyond the preparation, the first act. But why talk in superlatives, as if something that is beautiful could be surpassed? It is sufficient to say that this Venus is beautiful. I love her passionately, with a morbid intensity, madly, as one can only love a woman who never responds to our love with anything but an eternally uniform, eternally calm, stony smile. I literally adore her. I often lie reading under the leafy covering of a young birch when the sun broods over the forest. Often I visit that cold, cruel mistress of mine by night and lie on my knees before her, with the face pressed against the cold pedestal on which her feet rest, and my prayers go up to her. The rising moon, which just now is waning, produces an indescribable effect. It seems to hover among the trees and submerges the meadow in its gleam of silver. The goddess stands as if transfigured and seems to bathe in the soft moonlight. Once when I was returning from my devotions by one of the walks leading to the house, I suddenly saw a woman's figure, white as stone under the illumination of the moon, and separated from me merely by a screen of trees. It seemed as if the beautiful woman of marble had taken pity on me, become alive, and followed me. I was seized with a nameless fear. My heart threatened to burst, and instead... Well, I am a dilettante. As always, I broke down at the second stanza. Rather, on the contrary, I did not break down. but ran away as fast as my legs would carry me. What an accident! Through a Jew dealing in photographs, I secured a picture of my ideal. It is a small reproduction of Titian's Venus with the Mirror. What a woman! I want to write a poem, but instead I take the reproduction and write on it, Venus in furs. You are cold, while you yourself fan flames. By all means wrap yourself in your despotic furs. There is no one to whom they are more appropriate. Cruel goddess of love and of beauty. After a while I add a few verses from Goethe, which I recently found in his Paralipomena to Faust. To Amor. The pair of wings of fiction are, the arrows they are not but claws. The wreath conceals the little horns, for without any doubt he is, like all the gods of ancient Greece, only a devil in disguise. Then I put the picture before me on my table, supporting it with a book, and looked at it. I was enraptured and at the same time filled with a strange fear by the cold coquetry with which this magnificent woman draped her charms in her furs of dark sable, by the severity and hardness which lay in this cold marble-like face. Again I took my pen in hand and wrote the following words. To love, to be loved. What happiness! And yet how the glamour of this pales in comparison with the tormenting bliss of worshipping a woman who makes a plaything out of us, of being the slave of a beautiful tyrant who treads us pitilessly underfoot. Even Samson, the hero, the giant, again puts himself into the hands of Delilah, even after she had betrayed him. And again she betrayed him, and the Philistines bound him and put out his eyes, which until the very end he kept fixed, drunken with rage and love, upon the beautiful betrayer. I was breakfasting in my honeysuckle arbor and reading in the book of Judith. I envied the hero Holofernes because of the regal woman who cut off his head with a sword, and because of his beautiful sanguinary end. The Almighty Lord hath struck him, and hath delivered him into the hands of a woman. The sentence strangely impressed me. How ungallant these Jews are, I thought, and their God might choose more becoming expression when he speaks of the fair sex. The Almighty Lord hath struck him, and hath delivered him into the hands of a woman, I repeated to myself. What shall I do, so that he may punish me? Heaven preserve us! Here comes the housekeeper, who has again diminished somewhat in size overnight, and up there among the green twinings and garlandings the white gown gleams again. Is it Venus or the widow? This time it happens to be the widow, for Madame Tartakovsky makes a courtesy and asks me in her name for something to read. I run to my room and gather a couple of volumes. Later I remember that my picture of Venus is in one of them, and now it and my effusions are in the hands of the white woman up there together. What will she say? I hear her laugh. Is she laughing at me? It is full moon. It is already peering over the tops of the low hemlocks that fringe the park. A silvery exhalation fills the terrace, the groups of trees, all the landscape, as far as the eye can reach. In the distance it gradually fades away, like trembling waters. I cannot resist. I feel a strange urge and call within me. I put on my clothes again and go out into the garden. Some power draws me toward the meadow, toward her who is my divinity and my beloved. The night is cool. I feel a slight chill. The atmosphere is heavy with the odor of flowers and of the forest. It intoxicates. What solemnity! What music round about! A nightingale sobs. The stars quiver very faintly